بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله خالق العباد وساطح المهاد، ليس لأوليته ابتداء ولا لأزليته انقضاء، هو الأول ولم يزل والباقي بلا أجل، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وأشرف بريته سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. Praise be to Allah, the creator of people and the one who spreads the earth, who has no beginning and eternal, without an end. He is the first without an end and everlasting without a limit. We greet the most select of all creation and the noble of all Prophet Muhammad and his pure progenies. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the 25th night of our program for this month of Ramadan, almost over. I pray for your prayers and fasting to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for all of your safety, inshallah. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الحكيم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. صدق الله العلي العظيم. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. By the time of mid-morning and by the night when it becomes still, that your Lord has neither abandoned you and nor is he displeased with you. And the coming period shall be better for you than the previous ones. Your Lord will give you such that you will be pleased. Didn't he find you an orphan and gave you shelter? Didn't he find you wandering and helped you? Didn't he find you poor and enriched you? So do not suppress the orphans, and do not scold the one who seek help, and proclaim the favors of your Lord to everyone. As usual, we start with a brief recap of the last night's Surah Al-Inshirah. I pointed out that there seemed to be Surah Al-Inshirah and Duha, which we are addressing it tonight. They complement each other and make a pair. It becomes clear why as we go through the surah. I explained that Surah Al-Inshirah can be divided into three parts, both based on conceptual theories or conceptual bases. First part is the list of gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds the Holy Prophet that you have been gifted and you have received. The second part, the Prophet is consoled that just as in the previous nations and previous times, the relationship or the dynamic between hardship and ease existed. This will continue. So whatever hardship you are confronted with will lead or somehow give birth to ease as it unpacks itself. Under this section, I try to explain that although most commentators have opted out or explained that there is some kind of a sequential relationship between usr and yusr, or challenges, difficulties, and ease, I believe that every part of usr has a little bit of yusr within it. So yusr is not something independent of usr that sequentially will come after. It's within the usr. As it unpacks itself, usr and yusr is born out of it. Then the Holy Prophet was commanded that even if your mission is complete or part of it is accomplished, you should not relax and you should continue struggling, and the jihad continues, because nothing, you should not stop, you should continue with the struggle. This surah, again, similar to Surah Al-Inshirah, by most commentators is considered to be a Makki surah. And commentators have identified or talked, claimed, maintained that this is the fourth or the seventh surah within the chronological base of revelation. So if we consider Surah Al-Alaq, at least 1 to 5 of Surah Al-Alaq to be the first one, then the fourth or the seventh is Surah Al-Duha, very early in the Meccan period. And some commentators have claimed that this is the first surah that it was revealed in its entirety in one revelation. Although there are other commentators that say, dispute this, they say Surah Al-Hamd was the one before it, but certainly it's one of those first surahs at the beginning. The title of the chapter takes its name from the oath, the morning brightness, وَالضُّحَى. And scholars or commentators have divided as to exactly what period al-Duha is referring to. Is it very early in the morning as the light or breaks through the darkness? Very early in the morning, around, say, an hour after we finish our morning prayer and the sun comes out? Or is it talking not about a specific period, it's a length of period? They say that the word وَاللَّيْلَ إِذَا saja means still, when the night settles down and everything is quiet. So in contrast, Duha has to be referring to a period of time where the hustle and bustle of the life is continuing, and hence it must be the noise and the clatter of the daily life has already started, which means probably early morning up to around midday. That time is considered as part of Duha. Some small number of commentators have indicated that this is a reference to the whole creation. When the sunlight hits and shines on them, and for someone who is reflective. If you go outside and you suddenly see the creation in front of you open up, particularly after it's been covered during the night with darkness, it's referring to that period. That is something that it's neither here nor there at this stage. The chapter, similar to the previous chapter that we discussed, Al-Inshirah, can be divided into, again, 3 sections based on the conceptual thesis that it presents. Number 1, verses 1 to 5. These are what we call the consolation to the Prophet in response to the accusation. We discuss it in a minute. To the accusation labeled against him that God had forgotten about him and somehow displeased with him. So the first 5 verses clearly responds to that. Verses 6 to 8 refer to the special favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given to the Holy Prophet. This will be the overlap with the Inshirah. This is why last night when we were discussing this, I said the style of questioning, Alam nashrah laka sadrak, and with here, Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa. So there is an overlap in the structure of the question. This is verses 6 to 8. Which reminds the Holy Prophet of the special gift and mercy that he received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 9 to 11 is exhortation to care for the downtrodden, the poor, the needy, the orphans, and everybody else. Again, there are a number of debates about each one independently. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath. Sometimes the oath that is taken about issues that by themselves they have huge significance. Night and day as a complementary factors for each other are crucial for the stability of human life and all other life. Without night and day, where our efforts are separated. During the day, you spend that effort by going around, earning a living and being in movement. And at night is the resting period. If these were to be removed from each other, there are verses in the Holy Quran asks the mushrikeen, those who deny the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will happen to you if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed the night from the equation and the entire time was day? When are you going to rest? And what would happen if the reverse to be applied? Day is removed from the equation and everything was dark and night. When are you going to move around and earn a living? So these by themselves are unique in the fact that they are complementary to each other, but at the same time, they have profound significance for human life. Without the comfort of the night and resting of the night, if you continue 3 or 4 or 5 days with no rest at night, the whole body disintegrates. Those of you who have read stories or you might have been subject of torture, one of the ways of torture is to remove that dynamic from the subject, where you're either under constant daylight, artificial and real, or under total darkness. Body simply disintegrates. You have no response, you have no control over your life. And there is a verse in the Holy Quran, وَمِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ جَعَلَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ لِتَسْكُنُوا فِيهِ وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. This is part of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that created night for sukoon, day لِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ, to become active. This is why we have a number of number of hadith that says the day, the time for movement and activity starts literally from after Salat al-Subh. that sleep immediately after Salat al-Subh ruins the whole day, because Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi in particular says, how many plans are destroyed by that early sleep which is not supposed to be. وَمِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ جَعَلَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ لَتَسْكُنُوا فِيهِ وَلَتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. And out of His mercy is that He has made night and day so that you can receive comfort at night and seek His bounty during the day, so that we become grateful, we humans become grateful. So the first oath is وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, the significance of the night-day dynamic and the relationship in human life. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. This is the response or the premise for the oath that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes. This is a response to the accusation or to labeling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala somehow that has forgotten or abandoned the Holy Prophet. There are a number of stories narrated in various books regarding this particular section. They say that at the beginning of the prophethood, the Holy Prophet began receiving a revelation one after the other. And then there was a period in which he did not receive anything. And naturally, he became a little bit concerned that suddenly after such an active period of receiving revelation, there is nothing. This became the excuse for people of Mecca, the mushrikeen of Mecca, the idol worshippers, to come and accuse him. And particularly, there were a number of them. "O Muhammad, it appears that your shaitan has forsaken you and displeased with you." That's how they put it. So the surah came in response to them. So if the وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى are the oath, the premise comes after. And the premise is the sha'n al-nuzul for the surah that says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is neither displeased with you and nor forsaken you. What Allah is trying to do, to say here, that the time and frequency of the revelation is under His command only. So if it is delayed a little bit, or you receive frequently, you should not be concerned. This is entirely based on the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever He wishes, He will send down the revelation. So Allah here, in a very loving and caring kind of style, reminds the Holy Prophet that the special relationship between him and Allah still is intact, and Allah is not promising to abandon him, because it's not within God's nature to despise anyone or to abandon anyone. It's part, if we get abandoned, as we talked about last night, if sharh al-sadr becomes towards negative, because we have prepared the ground for it. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. This is another verse out of the first four. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. The hereafter, if literally we look at the verse, literally it says, and the last shall be better for you than the first. But throughout the Quran, this relationship between first and last is used as a metaphorical for the relationship between the here and the hereafter. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا مَتَاعٌ. Compared to the hereafter, the life of this world is nothing but fleeting enjoyment. وَلَدَارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَلَنِعْمَ دَارُ الْمُتَّقِينَ. The hereafter is much better than what we received in this life. And indeed, this is an excellent abode for those who are God conscious. So it is based on this dynamic that Quran criticizes those who sell akhirah for a price for dunya. Literally, you give a small life that it is transient. The pain and the ease is going to finish and you sell hereafter for this. Because in this dynamic, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to remind human beings that the hereafter is much better than this world. So we should focus on that. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. It's one of those verses that has generated huge amount of discussion. Exactly what does that mean? And your Lord will give you so much that you shall be pleased. What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to? To understand this, we really need to look at the Holy Quran. Remember, so far I have tried as much as possible, yes, bringing in few ahadith, but I have tried to look at, if we are trying to clarify ambiguity within the verse, to look at the Holy Quran first. And if we have hadith, becomes a supplement for it. So let's go back to the Holy Quran and ask a question, whether the Holy Quran can shed light on it. What was it that the Holy Prophet was concerned about most? Because the reward, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we shall give you so much that will please you, it has to be in relationship to a concern. Can we find one or two or number of verses in the Holy Quran that talks about what the Holy Prophet, what occupied the Holy Prophet's mind and concerned him most? An Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, there is a hadith, and then I have verses in the Holy Quran. Let's look at the Holy Quran first. Kahf, number 6. وَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. O Prophet, you are stressing yourself so much that you could die out of that stress. So much that you, out of grief, if they don't believe in the message. You have come to guide them out of darkness into light. And naturally, if they don't listen to you, you are grieved by their reaction. So what utmost concern for the Holy Prophet is the guidance of his community. That's what concerns him most. Another one, a verse from the Holy Quran again, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. It is indeed, we have sent, or it has come, a messenger for you from among yourself. It is very hard on him if you face hardship, anxious for your welfare and well-being. Naturally, this is not the physical well-being, it's the spiritual well-being that here it talks about. The care, anxious for your guidance. These are the kind of things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that the Holy Prophet was concerned about. So if he was concerned about how or what causes the community to stand away from responding to him and be guided, and the guidance of the community was of his utmost concern, this وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى has to be proportional with that in the same theoretical or thematic concept. This is why a number of people have gone towards shafa'ah on the Day of Judgment. Because the Holy Prophet is concerned for the well-being of his community, he's done his utmost, and yet deep down he's grieved by the reaction that he has received. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give him something in return that would help him towards that, to guide the society and remove the pain from them. And Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, إنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ما أنزل الله علي آية أرجى من قوله ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. There was no other verse revealed to me that made me more assuring, or that made me more assured than the verse that we have talked about. I have always been unsettled about the future of my ummah, and this verse encouraged me to ease a little bit, to relax. And there are a number of other ahadith regarding the concept of shafa'ah on the Day of Judgment. So from a hadith point of view, similar hadith that we have from Amir al-Mu'mineen, we have it from Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari, and few others that they talk about the same thing. So وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى is reminding the Holy Prophet, Allah is aware of your concern and your pain for the well-being of your community. And because of that, Allah is going to grant you something that would please you. And within the only thing that within that context will be the power to guide them out of misery on the Day of Judgment, not only in this world. The first section of this chapter finishes, which is the oath and the premise or sha'n al-nuzul regarding the actual revelation of the verse, of the chapter. The second section, this is the different theme here. This theme is similar to the theme that we talked about in Shirah, Alam Nashrah Laka Sadrak. The same kind of questioning, reminding the Holy Prophet of the mercy and favors that he received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse 6 to number 8. Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa. That the Holy Prophet is reminded that didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala found you yatim and orphaned, and Allah took care of you. By the way, when we go to our English translation, unfortunately, because it's a weaker language compared to Arabic, when it comes to the orphan, there is a single word in English that refers to orphans, whether paternal orphans, maternal orphans, or double orphans. They all refer to as orphan. There are different phrases in Arabic language that refers to different categories. For a person that loses a father is called yatim. For a person that loses both parents is called latim. There's a difference between the pronunciation. And for a person that loses a mother, aji, only refer to the human being, not outside. Animals, they can refer to yatim if the mother is no longer there. The father is irrelevant in the context of animal. But these three phrases, if you look at Arabic literature, you might come across them. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses yatim because he lost his father at the beginning. But technically, he became latim after, because he lost his mother when he was around 6 years old. And people, Arab mindset of Jahiliyyah, they cared less about the loss of the mother. They focused on the fact that his father is dead, and this is why they kept calling him the yatim of Bani Hashim. While by the time he received revelation, or at least early age, he was latim as well. So both parents lost. So under this social condition that you existed, that hierarchical paternal structure, and you lost that promising key that linked you to the society, wasn't it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to look after you and protected you? وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى, and found you wandering and guided you. Again, here has created a debate as exactly what does it mean, dhal? If you look at it purely from a linguistic point of view and a literal point of view, as a number of scholars, particularly within the Sunni tradition, have opted for it, that say that dhal here means that the Holy Prophet, before the proclamation and receiving the message, did not believe in Allah or Tawheed at all. I'm not here to debate that, but suffice to say that there is ample proof, even within the Holy Quran, within the life of the Holy Prophet, that counters this. But there is a claim that literal interpretation, وَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا, means you were lost. You did not believe in Tawheed. You did not believe in oneness of God, and it was through God's mercy that somehow guided you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Others reject this interpretation and maintain that wandering does not refer to the ideological belief issue. It's wandering as it happened that the Holy Prophet was, as a child, 3 or 4 times was lost, either in a desert or in Mecca or in some other places. And if it wasn't for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on him, he would not have been protected and he would have been harmed. So this is not a literal issue. It refers to the story, but it is a physical issue, that physically he was lost. Halima, his milk mother, has 1 or 2 stories when he was in the desert, that once or twice she lost him. He wandered around in the desert until they found him. It was the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was protected. And even the Holy Prophet himself, 1 or 2 stories that he narrates, that says, when I was a child, this happened to me, that happened to me, that clearly indicated that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or as he puts it, a hand, some power was looking over me. So this is dhal here does not refer to the ideological issue that the Holy Prophet did not believe in Tawheed. Remember, verses in the Holy Quran, the whole family structure, Bani Hashim was Hanif. They believe in oneness of God. And they followed the pattern of belief that still they had it from Prophet Ibrahim and through Prophet Ismail. So the notion that he did not believe in oneness of God is far-fetched. And this is supported by another verse in the Holy Quran. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Dhal could be a comparative relationship as well, knowledge-wise. We have a hadith from that during the return, inshallah, the return of our living Imam, you will gain so much knowledge, crudely interpreted. You will gain so much knowledge that when reflect on the past, you will find yourself, you were in a state of ignorance. What the verse is trying to remind the Holy Prophet, that due to revelation, you will gain so much knowledge that that little bit of knowledge, or whatever knowledge you had before the revelation, is kind of drift into oblivion. It becomes very small. Dhal is a relational to before revelation, after revelation, not in a way. وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا مِّنْ أَمْرِنَا مَا كُنْتَ تَدْرِي مَا الْكِتَابِ. You were not familiar with the concept of wahy and various books, revelation and everything else. Revelation, certainly when it comes, it adds huge amount to your knowledge. So allegorical or metaphorical use of language, that knowledge that you had before becomes pale compared to what you have now. So this is why dalal وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى, not because he did not believe in Allah. So verse is not in a position to deny any knowledge of Allah and say that he did not believe in Tawheed, but simply to remind the Holy Prophet that through this miracle of revelation, you have gained so much knowledge that you didn't have before. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. Indeed, he found you poor, and by your poverty was erased by marriage to Khadija, and gradually by the fact that you became the leader of the community. In the same manner that last night, the concept of wizr and the heavy weight I talked about, that some of this weight was removed by the presence of Ali salawatullah wasalam alayhi. The presence of Khadija, at least from a financial point of view, removed huge burden on the shoulder of the Holy Prophet. The second section is over. Then we move to the third section, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds the Holy Prophet, in the light of what we have already talked, that Allah is not going to abandon you, Allah is not displeased with you. And don't you remember how Allah looked after you when you were an orphan, you were poor and needy, etc., etc.? The consequence is now you have a responsibility. Not because he did not do it. It's an indirect way of telling the Holy Prophet, for those rich Quraysh people that suppressed the orphans and scolded those who came to them and asked for support, to remind them that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted you a favor, it is your responsibility to deal with the orphans. Amma al-yatim is an indirect warning to the powerful Quraysh people that have been rebuked repeatedly for doing exactly this, taking the mal and the wealth of the yatim because they are less powerful and they could not defend themselves. We have repeatedly in various verses, Allah, Allah fil aytam. By God, pay attention to the orphans, and they shouldn't drop from your focus and from your attention. You have to be constantly aware of their presence. إن اليتيم إذا بكى, the orphan, if he or she cries, اهتز لبكائه عرش الرحمن. The center of the divine majesty and power shakes because we failed our responsibility towards them. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. Do not scold those who ask. Again, some people have interpreted literally, say a person that comes to the door and asks for help should not be sent away without some kind of a help. Others have said that no, this is much more general. What it says here, that anybody that comes, anything that they come, whether it is intellectual questioning, religious questioning, it's not just clothing and food, that one has an obligation to respond to them and not to somehow demean them and deal with them in a condescending manner. And finally, the chapter comes to an end. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. That what does it mean to proclaim the favor of Allah or your Lord? Certainly it does not mean bragging about it. Yes, God has given me this, God has given me that. Particularly, remember the story of Qarun. He kept bragging about the wealth that he has, kept coming out with pomp and ceremony to prove a point that I'm better, I'm richer than you are. That's not, and see what happened to him as a consequence. That's not what Allah wants to say. Hadith from the Holy Prophet, إن الله تعالى إذا أنعم على عبد نعمة يجب أن يرى أثر النعمة عليه. If Allah grants you with some favors and mercy, Allah wants you to show those blessings. Not just to wear most expensive clothing and drive most expensive cars. No. That's not the way to show it, to share it. Once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants a servant certain favor, He wants to see the sign of it being present. What does that mean? The sign of, if given you wealth, you share it. If given you knowledge, you spread it around. Don't become, Allah has given you wealth and you become tight-fisted miser as before. We have seen a huge number of people in this community and in other communities. Their advert in the newspaper talks about how many millions they have made. Number one in this, number one in that, 10 million or this, 10 million that. But ask them to make a contribution for the well-being of a center, not a qarsh comes out of them. This is what Quran is talking about. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. God has given it to you. Share it. If it's wealth, share it. If it is knowledge, distribute it and spread it around. If Allah gives you power, whether it's position or something else, use it to support the poor and the needy and the ones that have the marginalized and they have no power. Again from the Holy Prophet, مَنْ أُعْطِيَ خَيْرًا فَلَمْ يَرَ عَلَيْهِ. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him or her with khair or mercy or a favor, and Allah doesn't see it on him or her, he becomes, somebody would call him, they say, you are the enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Munadiyan, anta mu'adiyan li ni'amillah. Well, another surah came to an end. We can take lessons from it, particularly during the first part, which is somehow to deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet. We can take a lesson that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not within the nature of Allah to despise anyone. It is within the nature of Allah to be most merciful, most compassionate. If we turn our face from Allah somewhere else, then naturally we are to be blamed. فَأَمَّا أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ وَأَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا. These are questions that we can ask ourselves. In our context, do I remember the time when I left my home and came over here and worked for McDonald's for only one sandwich? Now I have become the multimillionaire and I have forgot where I came from. Do I remember the day when 6 students in a room, we couldn't afford anything else? Now I have a palace. Suddenly I have forgotten myself. Now I have become a professor and my knowledge is only for myself, another miser. These are the kind of things that Allah is reminding us. Reflect. It's not just reflect on sinfulness and repent. Reflect on the ni'mah and the mercy and the favor of Allah on us. And we can all relate to early part of our lives, and we have our own stories. فَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ is to present, share, use it. Otherwise, what's the use? May Allah protect you all. And I finish with the same prayer that I started. I ask humbly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your fasting, for your prayers, supplication, and everything else to be accepted. And let's join together and pray for those that have put their lives on the front line, protecting everybody. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sooner the better for this crisis to come out. And then we can see what we have learned from this crisis, if anything. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.